Hello again, once more, welcome back to Leopard Street. This time at the desk rather than in the cellar. This is a follow-on from the previous episode, episode 81, where we looked at the new bridge. This is the painting section of that, so what we're going to look at is basically how I painted and how I weathered the bridge girder and the abutments. So without further ado, I will pass myself over to painting me and we'll get on with this. This is Leopard Street. Okay, now we are back at the desk for painting. Here's the bridge girder. That has had a single coat of Vallejo reflective green. That's going to get another coat in a minute because it needs it. Meantime, these. Now, as you can see, I've now brick clad these. It's not particularly neat, but it works. First job is simple, is to deal with the exposed white edges. Agrex Earthshade from Citadel. For that, I'm going to water it down slightly because it is a little bit bold used on its own for this sort of thing. So I'm going to take a lump of this over here. I'll work from the palette, so that's fine. Little bit of water. Doesn't need much. Makes the paint go further though, which is another advantage. And then basically all the exposed white edges, just get a run of this and it turns them into exposed brown edges. Which, yeah, that works. As you see, what it does, it just takes that I'm made of paper and I have been folded look off it. So just do that and go down along the edge. It's not usually too bad, and then you can just run a finger over the rest of it. And it sort of soaks in quite nicely. I'm going to be doing a little bit more weathering on these as well. However, I want this bit to be the first bit. Before you weather something, make sure you've got the painting on it finished, is the way I usually go. Let's carry on with this. Yeah, they came out, I mean, the cladding looks quite nice. We'll see when it all goes back downstairs exactly how well it looks. I thought it needs paint, and I thought I've got a better setup for painting up here. This isn't the cellar, which is why you can't hear the dehumidifier rattling away in the background, which, yeah, is just one of those things, unfortunately. This side here. This one got scored twice because it didn't fit properly. Due to incompetence, I fully admit this. So that's the reasoning there. Basically, I didn't measure it quite right. Got there in the end. So yeah. Carry on with this, just down here, like that. See, this is a little bit, possibly a little bit too strong, but yeah, basically gone. Little bit glossy, it'll dry a lot matter, which is fine. They did for a while actually do gloss versions of some of these colours, which were remarkably useful. The gloss Null Oil, which is the black version of this. Absolutely amazing for oil staining and stuff. It's a wonderful colour. They don't do it anymore, unfortunately. Right, and there's a little bit to do just on here. This strip, you're not really going to see because the viewing angle for this is that from the front. I folded a bit of paper over around the back just because it helps. I'm just going to put that there. But that's that one. Now onto the other one. This was the second one I did, and as you can see, I folded a lot more over around the back because it made it an awful lot easier. So then we're going to come along here. The cardboard is going to get painted as well in a minute. I've got a colour to paint that with, just to make it look a bit concretey. It's not the Zandri dust I've been using up to now. I've got a different colour. The vicious rumour that this is because I can't find the Zandri dust is entirely true. It's around here somewhere. So I just got paintbrush in my mouth there. There we go. A bit more of that. These acrylic washers, incidentally, if you're trying to do any weathering, check them out. They're absolutely brilliant. Not just Games Workshop, there's other companies do them as well. I'm thinking Army Painter do, I think, soft tone, strong tone, and there's a third one which I can't remember the names of. It's basically 2 shades of brown and a black. Vallejo do them as well, in a range very imaginatively called washers, which works quite nicely. Just a bit of that on there. Yeah, it looks a bit dirty. I'm not bothered too much about it. This is going to get weathered eventually, so it's not a huge problem. But these are going to get stuck into place downstairs, and this is going to be an absolute swine to do when they're in position, so I'm going to do it now. I haven't really bothered with the rest of the brickwork yet. That I do in place, but this is a little bit more involved, so I'm going to do it now. Not least because I've got to paint the girder work anyway, because I can't do that when it's in situ, because I can't get at most of it. But we'll see. And one little bit, oh, just down there, like that. And then that bit. And what it does, it doesn't necessarily fully paint this. I mean, you see the Metcalfe instructions recommend using some watercolours. If you can find a suitable colour, yes. And incidentally, if anybody's actually found a good match for this brick colour and for the blue as well, please let me know. Right, the concrete is going to get this one. This is Dunkelgelb German Dark Yellow. Yeah, let me tell you I do World War II modelling without telling you I do World War II modelling. This is a primer as well, so it's fairly thin. But it's a sort of concretey colour. It's a bit yellowy, but it'll do. And again, it's going to get weathered, so this just comes on and over anything that is concrete. I'll just put this on. This is going to get shaded and stuff as well, only a little bit. I mean, this bit especially, you're hardly going to see. This is really here just in case you do catch a glimpse of it, so that it doesn't look like cardboard, basically. This will also protect it slightly. I'm not that bothered. If I was really bothered by that, I'll be painting the insides as well. That's that bit, and topstone is the other bit to do. So we shall do that as well. I'm not painting the underside of the recess on this. Again, you won't see it because I'm going to do some weathering on here as well. You're really not going to see that. Just on there. But this stuff goes on quite nicely. The primer versions, I'm just using neat. Where I've been applying actual paint, I do tend to dilute it. This is a bit yellower. The Zandri dust I was using is a little bit lighter than this. This might be a little bit too yellow. But it's a base colour. It's going to get some more paints added to it shortly. So that's that one. Put that over there. Do this second one. And then that's these two done. What I'm then going to do is do another quick coat of green on the girder work, because that needs a second coat. That is then into the weather. Paintbrush out of my mouth. That is then into the weathering process. So again, just carry on with this. It's quick. I have the advantage because I do well, not just World War II modelling. I do all sorts of game modelling. I've got a huge range of paints. I'd love to say how many I've got. I don't actually know. I've got a lot of the Citadel range for painting their models with, really. I've got an awful lot of Vallejo, which is my standard paint. I've got some of the Army Painter. Some of their speed paints are quite nice. Some of their normal paints, nice colours, but not very nice paint, if that makes sense. Some of it covers is not brilliant, should we say. Most of it's alright. Some's not brilliant. What you find is you learn which paints are good and which paints aren't for various things, because some of the slightly more translucent paints are actually very, very good for certain effects. That's got a little bit where I don't want it to, but that'll do. Just wipe that off. Concrete colour, painted. Didn't take very long. That'll do. Right, there's a little bit, just that lip there that's visible. Yeah. Paint covers many, many sins when it comes to modelling. It's fairly straightforward to correct certain modelling mistakes, shall we say. Little gaps, things like that, you can sort of not exactly fill with paint, because you don't want to try and do that, but what you can do is sort out a lot of the effects. So now we'll come back to this. So one thing you do have to do with these paints is shake the ever-living bejeebers out of them. That's a fair chunk of that. This is actually quite an old colour. I've probably had that one the best part of 10 years. So these do need a little bit of water. And when you say thin your paints, it is just thinning them slightly. The idea is to make them flow better. So this here is going on. The second coat basically is to get a consistent colour. The first coat sort of prepares the ground for the second. I did think about airbrushing this. To be honest, I didn't think it was worth the time cleaning the airbrush out, because this would have been a few seconds worth of work with an airbrush, but a paint clean. So I'm not going to set it up for the amount of work this is going to take. I did think there's another option for this. Like I say, I thought about doing this in a creamy colour, but I've gone with green in the end because it's a nice, easy to find colour around here, and because it covers quite nicely. Cream I probably would have airbrushed. You can see the effect on the paint. It's a little bit weird where it's gone over the boss stick. That's the other reason for this second coat. The second coat is paint over paint, so it's usually a lot more consistent. Just a little dab of water into there, and these go in. And this, as you can see, this is fairly straightforward. This is the other good thing you do when you're making card kits yourself, or just modelling using this card. Painting it actually adds quite a bit of strength to it. And this is acrylic, so this will soak in. Basically, it's plastic. It'll soak in. It'll give it a plastic layer. So just paint the end there, and then come back to the top. The top done, because the top needs to be dry by I finish painting the front, which I can hold because it's not all painted. The lower part of the back, incidentally, isn't painted because you'll never see it. It's completely out of the way. It's below ballast level, so I'm not bothering with that. This is quite a basic piece of card engineering, really. Those of you with Cricut type card cutters could probably do an awful lot better job than I've done with this. Certainly more accurate job. This is not terribly accurate, but it's good enough. And from a distance, I think it'll look fine. But there's no rivet detailing on it. There's none of the panelling detail. All of these angle pieces should have like little L angles around the edges of them, which obviously the injection moulded plastic versions of this sort of thing have. But I wasn't going to be doing with 1mm grey board anytime soon. I could have done. I could have gone in and got some finer card or some plastic strut, something like that to do this with, but it's not worth it in the end of the day. It's a bridge, it's a bit of scenery, it's in the background, don't worry about it. It's something I picked up a lot from, again, from the gaming side of this thing, is look at what you want people's eye drawn to. That's where you spend your time. So on a model railway, it's going to be the trains, it's going to be bits of the stations, important buildings. Big viaduct, yeah, maybe you'll spend a bit of time on that. Little bridge over a sort of a drain, yeah, probably not. As your eye follows a train past it, it will be in focus for but a fleeting moment. So yeah, don't worry about it too much. So some of that. Carry on with this. I'm probably going to speed this section up actually when I'm doing it. So all the waffling I'm doing now, you might not actually hear. Never mind. The rest of this video is yeah, I mean, as you've seen, it's a little bit of a sort of a stop motion almost on how I've built this thing and set it together. But here, the painting and the weathering is perhaps more interesting. But this is, just knock that over. Oh, never mind, won't matter. This is going to give me a much smoother finish than the first bit, and I'm then going to go in and do some weathering, which is going to be fairly basic. I mean, I'm not planning on going mad with this, but this green alone isn't really good enough. Could I leave it just in this flat green? Yeah, of course I could. Would it look okay? Yeah, passable, but a bit toy-like. See, this is because it doesn't have all that surface texture. This is where the painting is going to rescue it, so to speak. The top's dry, which is good because I can hold it again. So yeah, we're going to add some detail just with a paintbrush that's not... It's not actually here on the model, so there's going to be a little bit of... yeah, sort of weathering, a little bit of rusting here and there. Not too much, because this isn't a modern layout where things have been sort of left neglected for as long as possible due to somebody trying to cut corners on cost. But it's a sort of layout where it's things are happening. Right, so I have to paint this bottom section again. Again, just water the paint slightly. And the watering really does make the paint go on a lot more smoothly. It's a bit thinner, but smoother. This bottom lip here, you're probably never going to see. This is one of these, if you duck down and try and take a picture looking under the bridge, if this was grey cardboard, you might notice. Hence the fact it is now green cardboard. Right, so that's that. What I'm now going to do is go back to the other colour, not on this bridge piece obviously, because that's got to sit somewhere to dry slightly. Right, this concrete, now that is obviously far too yellow, so I need to tone that down a bit, and I'm going to tone it down with a dry brush. To use this proper, yeah, I'm going to use this full-size dry brush for it. I've got others somewhere, but so I'm just going to grab hold of this, grab hold of another bit of tissue, or kitchen roll in this case, that lurks around here. Yes, this is the one I don't have much of, so I'm going to have to... But it's fortunate because I don't need much of it. So do that, take most of the paint off, which is the sort of dry brushy technique, and then it goes on. Try and get this where you can see it, because otherwise it's all a little bit pointless filming it. It goes on. I'm not sure how much you can see that. It lightens things up. I'm just going to grab a bit more paint out of here if I can. That'll do. Take that round there. And it's... What this is doing is it's catching the edges, is its primary job. Its secondary job is lightening up the flat surface, which is this top bit. But it gives it a nice colour. This bit I'm not going to bother with, this lower piece. You won't see enough of that for it to matter. This bit on the top is sort of moderately important. So yeah, to do that, a little bit more on there like that. And it's just lightened it up a little bit. Possibly do with a touch more, maybe a slightly lighter colour as well. Which I've got. So yes, I think I will do another tone over the top of that, but that's that one. So if I put the two together, you can see the difference. One's a lot lighter than the other now. It's a sort of, I mean, I'm going for a sort of stone effect really with this. I could do it in grey, I suppose, which would be the other option. It's like a sort of a stony grey colour, but overall I think this works quite nicely. This one's probably going on a little bit too heavy, but just do that across there like so. And that's that. So compare. Let's now do a slightly lighter tone to that, which is going. Just got to pick my brush back up, which I've just managed to drop on the floor. It's fine, but it now means it's probably covered in cat hair, because everything in this house is covered in cat hair for some reason. There's the two domestic leopards. One of them especially is rather fond of shedding cat hair absolutely everywhere. So lighter here. You'll notice I didn't bother cleaning the brush out. That's very deliberate. It means these colours will blend slightly on the brush, which is what I'm wanting. So there we go. Nice light stone effect. That'll do for that one. And this one here. Done. And that's the two plinths done as far as that's concerned. Now, just got to clean this dry brush out, which takes a little bit of time to do. So, brush soap into there and just like so. Water a bit more. I've seen videos that suggest, oh, you can't get dry brushes too wet when you're cleaning them. Yeah, nonsense, of course you can. What you've got to do is make sure you dry it thoroughly before you use it again. So, yeah, there we go. And I am going to be using it again, because I'm going to be dry brushing this green in a few minutes, but not just yet. That needs... So, you see that's now a fairly consistent colour. It's not quite dry enough yet. On the cardboard it's dry. Over the glue, not dried fully. So that's that. So we'll come back to that in a minute. Next is a bit more weathering on these. Now, the lower part, if you've seen some of the other videos I've done, I tend to do this quite a bit on the lower parts of these. So we get some more of this Agrex. This time not watered. What I'm going to do is just do some of this onto here. And I'm going to get a bit of water. And just water it in. And it's... doesn't have to go over all of it. It's just about adding a little touch of dirt, really. And along this edge here, this is going to be up against another wall. So this edge here gets dirtier, because it's like a recess. So I'm going to paint that, along most of it, I think. Let's go down like there. There we are. And do a few other little bits here and there. Rain streaking. Think of it as rain streaking. It just dirties it up a little bit, which is sort of a few little bits along the top that can go down. And the other secret with this is start at the bottom and work your way up, because that way if you get any like pooling, like I've got a little bit there which I'm actually not bothered about because where it is, it sits at the top of the model and looks better. So I'll do that along that side there as well. Just a little bit here. Yeah, that works. And then a little bit more is going to come down onto this bottom piece, where it's along the ground. This is obviously in the tunnel area. So the other thing I need to do is some rain streaking down here where it's come off the girder work. A few little bits, just like that. Just in a few places. Not all of it, just a few little bits. That one there a bit bigger, I think. And there we go. That's a little bit of weathering on that. It's not much, it's a little bit. I've got some other effects I might use as well. But this is the basics of it, and it's fairly straightforward to do. As you can see, it's not time consuming at all. But it just adds a little something to the model. Something sort of stuff. So, just gives it that slightly more realistic effect. Now I'll just drag that out with a bit more water, and it thins it out. Again, we'll come down to the bottom edge, and I'll just go along here like so. Again, it's not much, just a little bit. Come up onto the red brick in a few places. A little bit of water just over that bit. And then this inner side here again is up against something, so it can get a bit more. All the way down there. And then on the model, when you actually look on the layout at that piece, the recess will be sort of artificially a little bit darker than it should be. But it makes it look better. Rain streaking down there as well. And then we have that. That's those done. Next up, we've got this, the bridge itself. Now this one needs a different brush, I think, to do this with. This is going to need a little bit more weathering. I was going to dry brush it first. I'm actually going to do this wash stage first, because I think it'll look a little bit better this way. I'm going to use a slightly different brush. This is a slightly more worn brush. As you can see, it doesn't come to a point. Normally you want brushes to come to a point. Right, and this is this way up. Now, which way up it is matters, because the dirt will very firmly congregate in the bottom. So that's where I'm putting it. All along the bottom here, on these bits. And what this will do is darken the green, which is the idea. And it's tricking the human eye, is what we're doing. The model itself is, well, it's not exactly a scale model of anything. If you catch my drift, this is just a piece of cardboard of a fairly generic looking bridge. But the human eye notices scale. This is why a lot of toys look toy-like. The finish on them is too smooth. You don't see the shadows on the surface. You don't see the imperfections that reality has. So that is where your painting comes in. It's like, just do down that corner like that, down there. But it now starts to add a little bit of depth, especially if you look at it from a distance. You start seeing a little bit of depth. Now I'm going to add some other colour tones to this as well. This is just to shade these recess areas. It's not quite a recess shade technique, if that makes sense. You can get proper like panel lining stuff which would go very finely into the corners here. This might get a little bit of that in a minute, but not with brown. I'll do that with a black, and that'll just make the actual the very deep corners a little bit darker. But straight away you can see from this now it looks more three-dimensional. The girders are sort of coming out a little bit more, which they don't sort of by default. Again, keep it the right way up if you can, if you're doing this sort of thing, because that way if paint runs, it runs down to where water would actually collect, which is what you want. Now I also need to do these top corners up here. You're not going to see all of this unless you crouch down and look, but it's worth doing. So these go on here like so, that, just like that. And now what we've got is a bit of girder work that looks it looks a little bit less like painted cardboard. I mean, it's not perfect, obviously, but it looks a bit better. I'm going to do the back. Now, this rear area, when the track area behind this gets painted, this is going to get all the track colouring added to it as well. But that's actually intentional. I'm perfectly fine with that. That's the sort of effect I want. This little bit here that you'll see that sits above the track level, that cross piece, is what it needs. So go in there like that, like that. This, a little bit more there, a little bit more there, a little bit more there. And that looks okay. It's not perfect, but it looks okay. What I'm now going to do, before that's fully dried, is I'm going to get some black and I'm going to mix that into certain areas just to darken little bits of it down more. And I'm going to go back to a slightly finer tip brush for this one. So this is the Null Oil, again, Games Workshop. It's a black wash. These two colours themselves, if you only buy 2 of the Citadel colour range, get these 2. Null Oil and Agrax Earthshade. And what I'm going to do with this is just add it into the corners. Now the paint's still wet, but what this is going to do is darken the corners down just a little bit more. Spread it around a little bit on a few of them. And I'm only doing this at the bottom. I'm not going to do this shading at the top. I don't need to, I don't think. But that, it's just made it a little bit dirtier. And on these here, for where the rain shading is, just going to do a little bit of the black as a little bit of rain streaking. It's not much. It's a little effect. This sort of thing is firmly in the less is more category. Like just that little bit. Just adds a little hint of colour to it. Well, colour adds a hint of black to it. And there is another colour, although I haven't got it to hand, which I'm not going to do now because I'll do that when it's on the layout. And that is a green, which is good for like mossy effects. Right, I'm going to leave that to dry, and we'll be back in a few minutes when that has dried. Okay, this has had a while. It's not fully dry, it's dry enough for what I'm going to do next. These have had a little bit more weathering done to them just because I was bored. So the next step, we've darkened the recesses. What I now need to do is lighten the centre of the panels. And to do that is fairly straightforward. It's dry brushing again. So I'm going to take the basic green, which again is Vallejo reflective green. This technique works with just about any colour you care to work this sort of thing with. A little bit of that now. It now needs a lighter colour adding to it. And I'm going to use khaki grey. And the reason I'm using khaki grey is because I've got it to hand. There is no other reason. I've got it to hand because I was using it for something else. I'm just going to put a little blob of that in there. I don't need much. That is then going to get mixed using a brush. Any old brush, doesn't really matter. But mix it thoroughly. And you can see, if I tilt it slightly so you can see, oh, it's not, there's the glare. The tone has changed slightly. It's now lighter. Don't be tempted to try and add white. You'll get a right mess if you do. Cream colours work best. Beiges. Depends what you're trying to do, really. Right, so I've got a different dry brush. So this one's a bit smaller. And basically, I'm going to go into these panels. And I'm just going to start doing this in the centre of them. And in the centre. And it lightens them up slightly. It's not much. It's a very subtle effect. I want it to be a subtle effect. I'm going to do this a few times. I'll do it to most of the panels. The end ones don't matter so much because they're pretty much in shadow because they're behind the buttresses most of the time. But it goes on. And the purpose is just to add a little bit of variation to it. These are also going to get varnished before they get fitted. So there we go. Now, obviously I'm going to do this a couple of times with different shades of green. They don't all have to be the same. This circular motion is a good way of avoiding brush marks with dry brushing. So I'm going to do a little bit of this here. I'm going to do the little bits on the back as well. I'm also going to go over and do the raised edges as well. But I want to do these centre panel pieces first. Just in a slightly lighter colour. I say it is a subtle effect. When it's on the layout, it might be a bit easier to see. But this just goes in. It's pale green, and it just adds slight. You can sort of see the effect a little bit in the light there. Now, when I do the edge highlighting version of this, I'm going to have a bit more colour in. It is going to be lighter than this. So just carry on. Put a second little bit of this on, and it just starts to build up the colour a little bit. Just a variation in the tone. Yeah, and you only want this in the middle of the panels. And again, this is another model painting technique that I've sort of picked up from painting far too many tanks. In green as well, actually. I have a 15mm Soviet tank army, which is very green, shall we say. Put a bit of that on there. I'm not taking too much of the paint off either when I'm dry brushing this, because it is quite a similar colour. I don't really need to. I think that's starting to show. Basically, the wash darkens the corners, and this is lightening the central areas. Right, do the bit on the back as well. Basically, because I'm going to have to mix some more of the paint in a minute, but I want this to be about right. Now, there's only a few little bits of this on the back that need doing, because all this area down here is going to be below ballast, so I want just a little bit in the centre. And this, it again, as I was saying earlier, this when you start playing with paint, light doesn't scale. So this is why a model can look very, very model-like. It can have exactly the right colour. Literally, I mean, some of the HMG paints you can get for model railways are exactly the same paint colour as the prototype users. I mean, they're made by the same people. So yeah, they really do know how to colour match stuff. And that works, but it looks wrong. Slightly lighter tone there. The reason it looks wrong is light. Again, it doesn't scale. So you're looking at something and it looks toy-like because it's like you're looking at a very small section of something quite large. So if you go in and start playing with it, it's like, I mean, these panels, you look at a bridge and you'll see the centre parts look lighter. And they look lighter for a range of reasons. I mean, they will have weathered more. Yeah, there's more wind and rain action on the centres of the panels, sort of keeping the dirt off. But also, the edges are more shaded. So what you've got to do when you're painting something that's flat is try to add in that effect that otherwise isn't there. See, that's starting to come out. I'm going to go a touch lighter than this as well. So do this on the back as well, just a little bit. And the secret is every time you add a new colour or a lighter colour, you paint slightly less of it. Now here I am going to start going over the edges as well with this, because this will also make quite a difference. Possibly not on camera here, but when it's on the layout, this will look quite a bit different. It'll just sort of bring out the raised details slightly. If these had rivets and stuff moulded on, the dry brush stage really picks those out well. And it's a very simple way of doing it. So again, do a little bit of that on the back. Just clean the brush a bit. I don't know how easy that is to see versus the bits that have been done versus the bits that haven't. But by sticking with the base green, so do the parts of the tops as well. But by sticking with the basic green and just lightening it this way, it doesn't. The colour fade becomes quite gentle. Sometimes when you're some of the gaming models, you're going for quite a harsh highlight look. For something like this, where you're trying to make something that looks a bit real, you're usually not. So I'm now going to add a bit more of this. But I'm not adding any more green here. Should I use the rubbish brush for this, just to mix this in? It mixes around the edges. And you see now this is a lot lighter, so this is going to be applied much more gently, because that has gone a lot lighter. But that's what I want. This will also do more of an edge highlight, more of an sort of an extreme highlight on the edges. But here we go. Rub that off. A bit more of that. And we come in here and we just see that. You can probably see the difference with that. It's simple. It's subtle, and this, as you can see, this is not taking time. The key thing is I'm not pressing on very much here. I'm letting the pigment on the brush do the work for me. That's possibly a bit much, but I can do the others to match and lighten up as well. You also don't necessarily want it to be terribly even. So it's not like masking a bit in the middle and airbrushing it. This is really just about just a little bit of variation in the tone. And once I've done this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry properly for a little while. It's then going to get varnished because the gloss levels differ with the different colours. A bit of that on the end, just in case you see the end ones. You see that's slightly different, and I'm now going to come in with and do a little bit of the edge highlighting again as well. It doesn't have to be on all of it. It's worth doing a fair bit of it with this, but it doesn't have to be all. And I've got some bits that are going to be behind the struts, for example, of the columns. Let's do that. Let's do a little bit more down at the bottom. So this just comes on and it just breaks the colours up. It's a nice effect to do. It's simple. A little bit of this in the middle. Just a little. This back bit you'll only have, I mean, on the layout you won't see this bit very often. You'll see it occasionally. It's the other thing actually with a layout that's being built to have some photographs taken of it. You end up painting bits that in practice, if it was just a layout for you to look at yourself, you probably wouldn't bother with because you'd never see them. I'm just going to come along here like this and just. This is going to give the top a slightly mottled effect, which is sort of one of the things I want. I'm going to go across this in a minute with some other colours. I want to add like a rusty effect to it as well in a few places. Not much, but I do want some. So I'm going to carry on with this with a slightly lighter toned bits from around the edge. Until I'm happy with it, basically. I think that looks quite good. I'm going to go one very slight step higher in just a few places. Which is actually the khaki grey on its own. Now, important to note here, I'm not cleaning the brush between layers here. So even though that khaki grey is quite a bold colour, it's mixing with green on the brush. And what I'm doing with this is I'm dry brushing sort of these cornery pieces here, just a little bit, these little T shapes. And then just a very light, just a line along the top edge like that. A little bit in a few places around the bottom. I'm going to come along and do the centre sections in a minute of this. I'm just going to... This is just emphasising that bit. And then we're going to do a final bit lightly just in the middle. I want to make sure I've got most of the paint off before I try this one, because this is going to be quite a bit lighter. And that I'm happy with. It no longer looks, I mean, you can see the difference in colour there. It no longer looks like it's just a flat bit of green. It's starting to look slightly better. So I'm going to clean this brush. Also needs doing. This is a new brush that I've not used previously. Ended up this set of these I got from Amazon. There's a set of about 16 of these brushes. There's a company called Artis Opus that do these brushes, and theirs are better by a mile. There's no, oh yeah, these cheap ones are nearly as good. The Artis Opus ones are much, much better. They're also a hell of a lot more expensive. So depending on what you're painting, I mean, if I was doing locos and stuff on a regular basis, I'd probably have some. I'm not, so I don't. Right, next up we need to do a little bit. It's good, but it looks too new. It looks too cared for. So what I'm going to do now is a bit of rust, and the colour I'm going to use is this one. It's called Red Leather. I don't need much of this. I've got a couple of browns knocking about as well, actually. If I can get into it, that is. I'm going to use a little bit of this. I don't need much of it at all. That'll do, because it's going to get watered down quite a bit. I'll use the decent brush. The water is a bit, yeah, at this point, but I'm not too bothered. So what I want to do is really, really water this down. Because what I'm after is just the ability to just go in. And I'll add a little bit of rust. Not much, because you know it's a bridge. It'll be looked after a little bit. I'm just going to go in and just add a few little bits here and there. Just very, very wet, the paint, so it flows nicely. Just a few little bits, and I'm going to do a couple of bits on the panels as well, just in a few places. What I'm looking for, I'm going to do some other colours as well. It's not just going to be this. The idea here is bits of just where a little bit of rust has gathered. The paint's chipped off. Trains are going over the bridge. The bridge has flexed slightly, and the paint has come loose in a few places. And this is quite a light colour, but for this sort of thing, it's actually really rather good. I'm just going to come in. There's a few little bits that I think are possibly a tad too bold, so I'm just going to go in with a bit of water over the top, which will just thin them out a bit. And that's that. So that now has, if you look at it from that angle, just a few little bits. I'm going to do some on the back as well, because frankly, while I've got the paint out, I might as well. Just a few little bits here and there. Don't need to do too much of this. Little just dabs knocking about. There we go, that'll do, and a few little bits here and there on the top. That's it for that. I now need to do something similar with a darker brown, because that is a little bit too light, shall we say. So the colour I'm going with here is another GW one actually. It says Dryad Bark. It's quite a dark brown. So I'm going to add a little bit of that on. This is going onto the palette because I need to really water it down in the same way. So I'm going to do that onto there. Loads more of that. There we go, and it's going to get applied the same, really. And the idea is this is just slightly older rust. It's not quite as well defined. It's just a little bit brown, and again on the front, into some of the corners. You see, I've got the brown washes in the corners already. This is just going to do a little bit more in a few places. It's not much, just a few little scratchy marks here and there will do nicely. Like that. And I'm just going to do a couple on the top, and I'm going to leave it at that. Less is more with this sort of stuff. Just a few little splotches around. I mean, you could sponge this as well, which is another fairly easy technique to do, which gives you a little bit of variation. But that's that. Now that needs, I say, I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to take it downstairs, varnish it, and then I'm going to install it. So I will catch you back at the layout in a while. Yes, editing me again here. Yes, if you want to see what this looks like when it's installed, towards the end of episode 82, it's installed with the trains running round. Otherwise, like I say, this was just a brief extract. As you can see, what I say, use the word brief, I mean it in a figurative sense, not a literal one. But hopefully you can see why I stripped this out from the main video. I hope you found this one useful, entertaining perhaps, and possibly informative. I'll be back with normal service shortly. In the meantime, as usual, likes, comments, shares, etc. are more than welcome. Yeah, I'll catch you all about. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this, and goodbye.